What's up, people? Welcome to another edition of the New Breed Podcast, the world's best new metal podcast from two dudes who are really there. I'm one half of your hosting duo, Jay Horsecow. With me, I have my partner in crime, the notorious TIM. Too many drinks, I'm slurring. Tim Anderson Jr. Tim, how's it going?
Great. I'll be slurring soon too. So
All right, we're getting into the same. We're getting into the same groove here. So, what are we talking about this week, everybody? So, a couple weeks ago, we did an episode where we talked about documentaries. We talked about the things that Tim and I watched that we think everybody should watch. It's not necessarily new metal, but it's new metal and all things in between. We're gonna follow that trend forward. But now we're going to talk about books. Now, I know a bunch of people are going to go, books, I don't like to read. Well, if you don't like to read, well, shame on you. Don't be lazy, because there are some amazing stories that are told in some of the books that Tim and I are going to go through. Yes. And hopefully you can find one or two that you might be interested in. You can pick up the library, pick up Barnes & Noble, pick it up used, buy it directly from the author, and then maybe you get, find another band. I mean, and I would also suggest that just because you don't necessarily like the band or the genre, it doesn't mean you shouldn't read it, because you might actually come across some really cool shit. Yeah. So definitely. My first question to you, Tim, is say you're sitting down and you got to tell somebody, look, these are the N number of books. These are the five, these are the five music adjacent books you need to read. What's the first one?
The first one is Al Jurgensen's The Lost Gospels.
I knew that was coming.
That book is fucking amazing. It had me laughing the entire time. I don't usually read a book all the way through in 2 days. I brought this book. I bought the book. I read about a quarter of it at home, put it down, went to bed, grabbed it the next morning, put it in my lunchbox because I was going to read it on lunch, decided to sit in the parking lot at work and read another half of it, and I was like, oh shit, dude, I'm like fucking off at work. And then I said, you know what, fuck this, I'm a boss, no one's telling me what to do. I read the rest of it at work. It was amazing. I laughed my ass off. He is a crazy fuck.
He's a great storyteller. The stories he tells, it makes it that much more enjoyable.
It's one of them books where you read it and you go, get the fuck out of here. But if you know who Al is, you know that shit's true.
Yeah.
And the way it starts, when he goes through all the wax track stuff, that's amazing. I'm really into the wax track stuff. I loved reading about that. I loved reading about how they got really heavy into drugs and how he came out of it and all that stuff. Amazing book, dude. There's some, if you're one of the people that gets easily offended, it might not be for you. But
yeah, because he can be abrasive, but that's how he is.
He tells a lot of funny shit. I don't want to ruin anything on here, plus I might get in trouble. So read the book, man. It's hilarious. It keeps your attention all the way through. It makes you actually go back and listen to shit that he talks about. It makes you go back and watch stuff he talked about. It makes you go back and go, whoa, I was always wondering what happened with that. He explains it all. Amazing book. Jay told me to get it. I got it. I do not fucking regret any second of it. It was that good.
Oh, I will echo everything that Tim said. It is the drugs, the recording sessions of Psalm 69.
Jay, tell the story about how much money they got and spent all of it on drugs.
Oh my God, they got an advance of $750,000, and they were doing this thing where they kept the drugs in a separate hotel room that was attached to theirs. So God forbid the police ever came, they could just say, "Well, they're not my drugs; they're in the adjoining room."
Yeah.
The story was they got $750,000 as an advance. They blew through it all on drugs. The labels called them up and said, what are you doing? Where's the record? Where's the record? So they threw together Jesus Built My Hot Rod. And I'm sure Paul Barker would have a different story, because, those two were creative partners in the sense that they were opposites. But the way Al made it seem is Gibby Haynes was blasted. They sat him on a bar stool, stuck a microphone in front of him, and they just let him go. And then they wrote around him. And then, Al and Paul were doing and undoing each other's stuff. But then they sent that to the record label, and the record label, their response was something along the lines of, holy shit. And then Al said, yeah, so I need another $1 million. So this is a $2 million record in 1993, 4, which is best bananas.
The best part of that story is how they had two studios going at once, and they were each writing stuff and then saying like, well, fuck that part, and erasing it off the hard drive.
Yep.
And then Al would come in the next day, not even remember what the fuck he did. Like the
Mm-hmm.
whole Filth Pig record, he said he was so blasted he doesn't even remember recording.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy, dude. When you're that fucked up and you don't even remember recording an entire record, that's
Yep.
wild. And that record is my favorite. I think that's their best record. So
Yep. Yep.
that's always the record I always said too, that it just, you could just feel the drug use in that record.
Yes. Yes. I mean, a
And I
lot of
know
their
that's
stuff you can
weird. Yeah.
sense it. Yeah.
I know that's a weird thing to say, but and I'm going to say this in another book that I'm going to talk about in a little bit after this. But when you listen to Filth Pig, you could just hear the anguish in him. Like you can just hear the heroin like coming out of his
Mm-hmm.
fucking
Mm-hmm.
his body. That's crazy, dude. That is the '90s was the best fucking year for music. I don't give a fuck what
Oh, it was a
anyone says.
fantastic, fantastic decade. So speaking of, before I go on to my pick, right? We mentioned Gibby Haynes, the Butthole Surfers. There's a book which I am dedicated to try and get a copy of. It's called Let's Go to Hell: Scattered Memories of the Butthole Surfers.
Oh yeah,
And I can't find a copy of this because it was an independent guy with a small print run. It was 500 pages, and apparently it is the best book about the Butthole Surfers. They were a band that, even if you don't like their music, the stories are insane.
yeah,
Like
they're
like Gibby
crazy.
Haynes and I mean, they would have strippers on stage and shooting shotguns, and it's just bananas, just absolutely fucking bananas.
Yeah, you don't really have to like that band to get into the backstory of them, because I'm one of them people that don't really care for their music, but they are some crazy fucks.
The story is great. The story is
Yeah.
great. So my first pick, if I had to tell somebody, look, these are the books that you have to read. The first book I would give them would be Sell Out by Dan Ozzie,
Okay.
which the subtitle is The Major Label Feeding Frenzy That Swept Through Punk, Emo, and Hardcore 1994 to 2007. So this is the story of all the major labels going kind of nuts and signing all these bands in this genre. And then most of those bands either imploded or blew up or faded away, or they were dropped from the label, then they turned around and did something brilliant. And the bands covered in the book.
Is this all TVT bands?
So no, it starts with Green Day.
Okay.
And it's Green Day, Jawbreaker, Blink 182, Jimmy Eat World, At the Drive-In, Thursday, My Chemical Romance, Rise Against. But it tells the story of, so like Green Day, it starts with how they were bought from Sellout, how they were their contract was bought from Lookout Records. Jimmy Eat World, it talks about how they were signed to a major, they released an album, it bombed, they got dropped, and the next album was Bleed American, which had the middle, and this is what catapulted them to stardom. It talked about Blink 182, it talked about Thursday, where they got signed to a major and things kind of didn't go great.
Yeah, what, War All the Time?
Yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
didn't go great, but it was. And then At the Drive-In, which is one of the most famous band implosions ever. Right, they
Was
came out of nowhere, super hyped, and then they exploded.
was War All the Time on Maverick?
I think so.
Or
Yes, yes,
I think it was one of them M1s,
I
wasn't
think
it?
so.
That's a great record though.
I can't remember the last time I listened to it.
Great record. Yeah. I have to read that. That sounds very interesting. You
Yeah,
should
it's. I
link me
mean,
to that.
it's broken in chapters, and each chapter is a different band. But like you talk about Green Day getting signed and releasing Dookie, or Jawbreaker being that band that everybody loved that just kind of fell apart, and Jimmy Eat World getting dropped, and it was really, really kind of cool. And that's not my type of preferred music genre. But the stories behind, At the Drive-In, where those guys are absolutely fucking nuts, and that band, there was no way that band was going to go anywhere but just a straight up explosion, like into a
Yeah.
million pieces.
Yeah. I'll that sounds amazing. I'll have to read that.
But yeah, it was good. There were some chapters where, like, if you're not into the Donnas, if you're not into the Stillers, it's okay, that's skipping. But My Chemical Romance and stuff, like, it's definitely worth the read. That was definitely worth the
All
read.
right.
All right, Tim, what's another pick you would say, yo, you have to read this book? It's not up for debate.
Marilyn Manson, The Long Hard Road Out of Hell. That is another book along the lines of Jurgensen's book, where it's just a fucking amazing book. It's an amazing read, man. Another just sick fuck. Um, it's obviously starts off with his childhood and all that stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
as it goes, dude, like, and this is what I said about Filth Pig for Ministry. When he talks about Antichrist Superstar, dude, that's when the dude was fucking out of his mind.
Yes.
That
Yes.
that record is one of my all-time favorite records. It always will be one of my all-time favorite records. That record is perfect from start to finish. That book is perfect from start to finish. Just amazing read, man. I know his name is very synonymous right now with being a scumbag, and I can't say he's a scumbag or not. I don't know him personally. I don't know what he's done personally. It
Hmm.
seems like the
Hmm.
shit that he gets blamed for is getting thrown under the rug. Some of it is getting proved that he didn't do it. I don't fucking know. I don't really care what you think of him. I love Mechanical Animals. I love Antichrist. I love all that shit. So I don't.
Yeah,
I
I mean, he tells an interesting story. I've got a copy of that upstairs, and believe it or not, I've never finished it. I get like 10 pages in and then I get distracted.
Yeah, like I'm one of them people, and you might take this a scumbag way. It's up to you. I don't really care. I separate the art from the artist, man.
You have to.
So
You have to.
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to separate the art from the artist and Lost Profits because that is fucking that's
Yes, unforgivable. It's unforgivable.
unforgivable. Yeah, you don't fucking do that shit.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
the Manson shit, who knows? You never know. These women are
Yeah.
fucking nuts. Dudes are nuts these days. Everybody's
Yeah.
nuts.
Everybody,
So
and whenever when you add in drugs and drinking and all the shit that was going on, you kind of wonder how altered was everybody during that.
exactly. Yeah, that's all I'm trying to say. I'm not taking anyone's side, so don't think I'm a scumbag because I'm really not. But that is an amazing book. If you like Manson, you like that time period because it doesn't really go past like Mechanical. I think it kind of might go a little bit into Hollywood, but
Yeah, I vaguely remember reading a review where it touches on Hollywood, but not really.
yeah. But if you like that time period, read the fucking book. It's amazing. You can get it on Amazon for cheap these days. Get the hard copy. Don't get the soft. Get the hard copy. You always get a hard copy if you can. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Amazing book, man. It's a must read. So the first two I mentioned, Al Jurgensen and Manson, they're must reads. Do it.
So I will go with another must read that I think everyone should read. Um, so it just came out, Decibel Press, right? The Scott Burns sessions. So
Okay.
this is all about Scott Burns and Morris Sound and all the albums he did with that studio.
I have to get
And
this.
it is an awesome read. Because 99% of the stuff that we like is influenced by either Sepultura, Suffocation, Terrorizer, Napalm Death.
Yep.
He actually mastered the Internal Bleeding album, even though he hated it. And there was an Atheist,
Morbid Angel.
Obituary, Morbid Angel, Malevolent Creation, Deicide. Like he touched all this stuff, and he comes off as just this mellow, really nice dude. And that he was good with working with the bands, but this was, if you are into metal at all, you need to read this book, because it's basically the Bible of how we got the sound that we got, right? All that huge death metal stuff that Roadrunner, because he talks about how Roadrunner was his biggest client. All that stuff that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, it was basically coming out of Scott Burns and Morris Sound, and it's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I have to get that. It's another one I have to read. There's so many books I have to read, but I've been reading a lot of stuff about hacking and stuff. Not that I want to become a hacker. I just think that shit's very interesting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I'm really into that phase, but I'm gonna get back into my music phase like this year
Yo,
probably.
this is a
So
Christmas gift. It only comes in hardcover. Get somebody to buy it for you. It's nice, and it's like 400 something pages, and it literally goes in chronological order from the first album he did to the last album he did, and it was really cool. It's a really cool
okay.
read.
All right. I mean, I didn't even read the Devin Townsend book you gave me yet because I've been reading the hacking stuff, but that's my next one. I'm
Yeah,
starting off the new year with that one.
that one wasn't bad. That one wasn't bad. Same thing, told in a chronological, but he breaks it up by band, which makes it a little bit confusing.
Which is not surprising because his podcast he did the same thing. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
Devin, let's talk about that book. Even though I didn't read it, I'm going to read it, and Jay has read it. But Devin is a musical fucking genius. He
What's
is
the title of that? It is
only half
only
there.
half there. Yeah.
He is a fucking musical genius. He's one of the modern, just all time geniuses. He's up there with Trent Reznor for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's a speaking of Trent Reznor. He needs to write a book, or someone needs to do one about him
Oh, the
because
definitive history of Nine Inch Nails and all his other projects. Yep, yep.
someone needs to do that. I can't fucking believe it hasn't been done yet. He needs to sit and do that shit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I'm very looking forward to reading that because he's absolutely one of my favorite artists of all time. He seems like one of the nicest, coolest dudes ever too. I would love to fuck.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
on my bucket list to interview. I know he's been interviewed a million times, and I think I wouldn't really add anything to what he's done, but I would just love to talk to him. He seems like one of the coolest dudes ever.
Yeah.
We need to make that happen this year.
We could do that. We could definitely do
Yeah.
that.
because I would fanboy the fuck out on that one, dude. One of my all-time favorite people ever. I don't know him personally, like I said, but he is one of my all-time
Yeah.
favorites. Is
All right,
it my
Tim.
turn?
Yeah. What's another book you would tell? Look, you got to read this.
All right, so I'm a huge Mobb Deep fan. If you're into hip hop, you should probably know Mobb Deep. Prodigy wrote a book. It's called Infamous. Dude, that's another book I read in one day. I picked it up on Amazon one day. It got to the house. I sat. I think I got it at like 2 in the afternoon. I finished it by 10. It's about 300 pages. Dude, it's if you like the history of like Queensbridge and all that hip hop stuff, Nas, all that stuff. If you're a hip hop fan, pick the book up, man. Um, he just goes through his life, dealing with what's the disease that only like African American people get?
Sickle cell.
Yeah, he talks about the sickle cell stuff he had and all that stuff. Really, really interesting stuff. It talks about all the records, talks about how they got popular, how they got signed by Bad Boy. What's his name?
Puffy
Puffy
Combs. Yeah.
signed. They talk about that, how he made them change their name and all that stuff. But really good book, dude. I named one of my fucking dogs after the other guy, Havoc. I love Mobb Deep. I love hip hops. I love rap. So I mean, if you know me personally, you know I love that shit. But if you don't, if you're listening to this, and you're like, oh well, he likes all that shit. I do. I listen to about 50% of my listening is usually hip hop. So love it. But yeah, if you're a fan in Mobb Deep, pick that book up, man. You can get it cheap. Yeah, pick it up. That's all I can really say.
Cool.
That's a definite read for me.
I'll add that to the pile. What I'm gonna so far I've talked about talked about metal. I've talked about pop punk emo, that sort of stuff. The genre I haven't covered is metal and hardcore, metalcore.
I'm waiting for that.
So for in this lane, if I'm going to tell you this is one book you have to read, it's by Brian Peterson. It's Burning Fight. You remember this one, Tim?
Mm-hmm.
The 90s hardcore revolution in ethics, politics, spirit, and sound. So this is basically the story of all those bands that come out of the 90s scene.
Yep.
And when I say all those bands, I truly mean all those bands. So the bands interviewed in this book, right? 108, Burn, Caven, just a random assortment. 108, Burn, Caven, Coalesce, Damnation AD, Dead Guy, Disembodied, Earth Crisis, Inside Out, Integrity, Race Trader, Resurrection, Rorschach, Shelter, Strife, Texas is the Reason, Unbroken. Like this is all that stuff that has influenced so much of the hardcore, so much of the metalcore we listen to today.
Yep.
I remember that they actually did a release show. They did like a whole bunch of Boston bands played. I think it was like Bane and American Nightmare and a whole bunch of other bands. They did a show for this. But yeah, if you want to get the vibe of what it was like in the mid to late 90s, early aughts hardcore, this is what you want to read. All those bands were in that scene, and they talk about like the Disembodied guys. They talk about how they were touring and they were getting, but they were all kind of just getting on each other's nerves, and they were probably too young, and it really fascinating, really fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go along and add to that. If you get that book, you should also get this next one and read them in conjunction with each other. I think.
Okay.
Choosing Death: The History of Death Metal.
Yep.
And that's an incredible read, man. Obviously, you fucking know what it's about when I just told you. If you like death metal, it goes through all that stuff. I think that would be a two hit right there that you could do right in a row.
Yep.
If you're a fan of both of them genres, you should definitely read both of them because there's so much in-depth stuff in them books, man. That you just get there's a lot of stuff in them books where you're like, whoa, I didn't know that. Because you don't see, here's the thing about reading that people don't understand. These days on the internet, you can get interviews with bands and blah, blah, blah. You go on YouTube, you watch one of your favorite bands get interviewed. But these books are written from the perspective of when it actually happened.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's a whole different philosophy where it comes from. Because you get it from the actual source.
The horse's mouth. Yeah.
You don't get it from Davey that just interviews bands like me and you do. You know what I mean?
Right.
You get it from the dude who was actually there, the dude who actually knows what he's talking about. And that's two books right there you need to read in conjunction with each other.
Yeah, you could really go from one to the other and you totally get that snapshot of shit. You could add in Scott Burns before that, and you get that whole snapshot of metal into death and black metal into metal and hardcore. I mean, it's yeah,
definitely.
Okay. I think I've got two left. Oh, I have two left of this list, then we'll just go round horn. So if I'm going to tell you these are 5 books that you need to read, my next pick has nothing to do with metal or hardcore. The title is The Song Machine Inside the Hit Factory. So this is all about pop music, and it's about how pop music is actually made. And it talks about recording, a word for a third. It talks about the engineers like Scott Storch and those guys. Luke, Dr. Luke, I think was his name, that Kesha had that fight with, that beef with. It talks all about how these studios and how these producers put together hits, not songs, hits. And yes, there is a formula, and yes, someday AI is going to be able to do it. But this book was so fascinating to me because it talks through where did Kesha come from to get so big? How did that work? Right. And I remember the one story in the book that I remember is Kelly Clarkson does 2 albums with the same producer. She's getting bigger and bigger. She has her 3rd album. I think it was her 3rd or 4th album. She wants to do it with somebody else. And the record label owner was like, "Hey, fuck out of here." No. And she said, "No, this is what I want to do." And she does it. And the album bombs. And then the next album, she goes back to the producer that her record label wanted her to use. So it's really fascinating how they literally put together a hit. It is not organic. It's more surgical, right?
Yeah.
And really, but it's really, really, really fascinating. They're really fascinating.
That would be something I would check out.
Yeah, it was
It
fascinating. Like how the I forget the producers that are in the book. A couple of Swedish guys.
Well, they're the producers, right?
Yeah. I forget the guy's name.
Dude, Europe always has the best music.
It's
just
amazing.
You know what I think it is about Europe, and I think we've talked about this before on Illustrate, is like, I think the thing you get over there is music and production and touring is encouraged by the government over there. There's a lot of government grants.
Well, yeah, they get grants
people.
And stipends to be artists. Yeah.
And I think that really shows because a lot of them artists, man, are just super fucking talented. Like Jens, super talented producer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah, I'm looking at Dr. Luke, Dennis Pop, Max Martin is the producer I'm thinking of.
Okay.
But yeah, this was a really, really fascinating read into how how producers put together pop music hits, and I thought that was fantastic. Definitely something that's, it doesn't have to just be in one genre, but I think it adds a lot of insight into how the music industry actually works.
Yeah, I would read that, definitely.
Okay.
Number 4 for me, I'm going to go back to hip hop. There's a book called Original Gangsters.
Okay.
So it's all about Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Tupac, and it's basically the whole West Coast rap like revolution thing that happened in the 90s. Really good stuff, man. Because we all know, I mean, even if you're not a hip hop fan, the West Coast stuff was just a fucking huge back then. I mean, all of the hits came out from that. I mean, from NWA to Dr. Dre to Snoop, all them records are classics. This basically goes through all of that stuff, all of the history. Really good stuff. It's a pretty big book. I think it's like 500 pages. It's one of them books where it's like the really small writing.
Yep. Okay.
But it's super interesting, man. So, it details everything with Eazy-E and his getting AIDS and how it's a conspiracy that he got it. All that. It's really good, dude. I think
I'll check that out.
Yeah, you can get that on Amazon. It was actually on sale for Black Friday the other day, so it's probably still on sale, to tell you the truth. But it's a really good read.
I will check that out. I will definitely check that out. Yeah, because I don't have a lot of hip hop reading. I really don't.
Them 2 that I mentioned, I don't know if you like Mobb Deep, but that book's incredible, man. Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I'll read just about anything. The music stuff I'm just fascinated by.
Yeah, you would really like both of them.
My last pick is actually a book I read in an afternoon. I read this while my wife was getting a tattoo. Literally 4 hours later, I finished the book. The title is How Music Got Free by Stephen Witt. A story of obsession and invention. So those of us that are old enough to remember when leaks were happening nonstop, albums were leaking months ahead of time. This is the story behind the guy. It basically boils down to one guy who ran a crew out of a CD pressing plant in the Midwest, and the wares groups he was part of that helped him distribute it. And he eventually gets caught and all that. But what a fascinating story about somebody who, just for shits and giggles, not because he was trying to get rich, not because he was trying to build up his cred, he was just really into music. and he literally led to the near demise of the recording industry. The music industry is still that you can't kill that, but the recording industry, the big label shit, this is the guy. He's basically patient zero that killed it, and it is a really fun story.
That I gotta read too.
Yeah, I'm telling you, dude. I literally started. I dropped her off at in Northern Liberties. I went to the La Colombe, the flagship. It's the big coffee shop there. I got an iced coffee and I started, and then another iced coffee and I kept going, another iced coffee and I kept going. And then next thing you know, I looked up, I'm 430 pages in and I'm done, or 300 pages in and I'm done. It was Tim, honestly, it's a really, I mean, you were around for that, right? You remember when, I wonder when this is going to leak. And like, what is it? The new Black Dahlia album or who, I forget who's one where it leaked like months in advance. You were just like, yeah, well, that's the way the world is now. It's one dude. It's one dude.
It's the way the world turns.
Yeah.
But yeah, that shit, I didn't read it, but obviously I will. But yeah, that really did fuck it up.
It changed the whole world, man, overnight. And he talks about how I wasn't trying to get rich. I wasn't trying to get back at the record labels. I was trying to be the cool guy at the party who showed up with the Britney Spears CD a month before it came out.
Yeah,
and like,
because all the women would like that,
Yep. And he tells all the stories where he had a crew working for him, and they would like, 3 guys would try and sneak CDs out because one guy would get caught, but the other 2 would make it. And it was bananas, the stories he tells. But yeah, again, just somebody looking to, be the first kid on his block to have the new Britney Spears album. Yeah, it was a great read. It was a great read.
All right, number 5.
So what haven't we covered off, Tim? Okay, you do your number 5, and then we'll talk about what we haven't covered off.
Confessions of a Heretic from Nurgle from Behemoth.
Yes.
Really good stuff.
Well, he's a bright, I mean, the one thing that shines through in that book is he's a smart dude.
Yeah.
Like, he's not
smart.
dumb.
Goes through the cancer thing, all that kind of stuff. But if you're a fan of Behemoth, man, you should definitely check that out as well. He and like Jay said, he's very, very
he's erudite. He's very well spoken. Like, you can tell that there's a brain behind, the guy who plays aggressive music.
Yeah, there's a brain behind the dude who goes up on stage with fucking face paint on and just plays disgusting extreme black metal, death metal stuff. But great stuff. It's like, you don't really want to say too much because you don't want to really give out too much. What I mean? Mm-hmm. But I really enjoyed that one. That's another one I got to read again. See, most of these books I'll go ahead and just read again because it's like, I need another book. Let me read this one until the next one comes in, or this is one of them books I'll read again, probably this year coming up. But this is a book where, pick it up, man. I don't want to give too much out because I just don't want people, you know what I mean? Like,
right. You don't want to ruin it for them. It's definitely worth reading. So you talked
But you have read it though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You talked about the Choosing Death, Albert Mondrian's Choosing Death, as a good encapsulation of death metal. And we talked about Burning Fight. We'd be remiss, Tim, if we didn't mention Tony Retman's books from Bazillion Points Press. So he did the Straight Edge book, a clean whatever, and he did the New York Hardcore book. So again, even if you don't like those genres, if you're not a big Straight Edge fan or Straight Edge, and if you're not into New York Hardcore, this was still a really cool story about how those scenes developed. It was really, really cool.
If you're into Dave Grohl, there's a book of him that he put out called Storyteller. That's pretty good. Goes through all, obviously, who Dave Grohl is. That's a good read. That's always on Sound Amazon. You can grab that. That came out pretty recently as well. So that's pretty good. I have a list of shit that's good, but not where it's like a must read. I don't know if you want to go through some of that kind of stuff.
Let's pick out some highlights. So I'll go. My first highlight I'm sitting here staring at a picture of the shelf behind me where it's just loaded with all my music books.
Yeah,
I can't believe I didn't measure.
You should take your thing off and show everybody real quick.
I should. Can I do that? Video settings, and if we turn this off, so that shelf right there, that's all music books. That's my to read pile. That's my read with notes, and that's my comic book stuff. But yep. Yeah, and I have literally 3 other bookcases on the other side. I can't believe I didn't mention this book because I love this band. Jason Netherton from Misery Index. He has a master's in art, some sort of fine art master's, and his thesis was the book Extremity Retained. So this is the oral history of extreme music. And the book actually breaks it down into 3 separate chunks. The first chunk is recording. The third is tape trading.
Yeah.
And the third section is all about how these bands toured. No GPS, an atlas, payphones, and quarters. But it's an oral history. So it's him interviewing all these guys from all these different bands. And it's a long book. It's like 600 pages. It's a big one. But it was a fantastic, awesome read because again, it's these people telling their own stories of, I would send Tim a $5 bill with a self-addressed stamped envelope and hope that in 3 months I get back a tape from him, which is an EP or like a 7-inch. That's how it worked back then. There was no going to PayPal and complaining that some band ripped you off. But it's a really, really endearing story about what it used to be like.
Yeah. That's another one you've always told me about. I have to pick up. You're gonna have to give me a list of all these things, man.
I'll send you the picture.
All right. Next for me is John Densmore's Riders on the Storm.
Okay, The Doors.
I fucking love The Doors. This should have made my must reads, but it's a little, the way it's written is a little weird, but there's a lot of really good stuff about Jim in this book.
Okay.
It's basically his life with the Doors and Jim Morrison, how he was a fucking disaster and how they made it and all that stuff. Really good book. You can grab that on Amazon really cheap as well. You know what's good about Amazon? If you can go into the used section, excuse me, and there's people that sell these books for like a penny.
Oh yeah.
And you pay like $3 shipping. It comes to your door in like 3 fucking days.
I am a big believer of once $15 is my price point. Yeah. Anything over $15 brand new from Amazon without Prime, I got to pay shipping. Anything over $15 with Prime, I'm looking to see used. Like I'm sitting here as we're talking, I'm adding shit into my cart. They're all used because I get, for $3 plus $4 shipping, it's still cheaper than the $15 brand new from Prime. And I don't need it tomorrow.
Yeah. And some of the books come and they might have some highlights in it. Who gives a fuck?
Right.
Just read it.
Right. You're going to read it anyway.
This is one of them books that I got for like a penny and it was like $4 shipping and it had like a bent fucking corner. Gives a fuck. You're not reading the book and worrying about a corner that's bent.
Yep.
So go on Amazon and just go down where it says other buying options and they'll have used ones and it'll tell you like most of them are from libraries actually.
Yeah, or they end up at the Goodwill somehow.
Yeah. So you'll get a lot of them books where it's just like it'll tell you in the description too, like has some notes in it or who cares, man. I've got many books like that, then you just sell them right back. You get your $5 right back.
Yeah, exactly.
It's cool, dude.
Exactly. So I'm going to talk about something really kind of fucking wacky and obscure, but I was obsessed with this. And I think we've had this discussion. Party Monster. Right. And we might have talked about this in the movies. So this is the Murder in Clubland. It was a movie with Macaulay Culkin and Seth Green. This is what was his name? So the author was James St. James. The title of the book was original title, and I bought this when it first came out, was Disco Bloodbath, a fabulous but true tale of murder in Clubland. So this was the Michael Ailig, the guy who killed the drug dealer, dismembered him, put him in pieces. This was that story. And again, I think I told this when we talked about documentaries.
You did. Yeah.
I was following the story in the Village Voice, but this is a guy who was one of those club kids. He wrote a book about it. And I remember picking this book up as soon as it came out because I was really fascinated by this story, following it all. Yeah, it's an interesting read, man. And again, I mean, I would tell everybody, watch this, read this. Don't watch the Macaulay Culkin movie. It's fucking terrible. But read this book and then watch the documentary called Limelight, which is about Peter Gadian, who had Limelight, Tunnel Club USA. Those were all his clubs. What you watch this and you're like, holy shit, that was real? That was real?
Where do I find this movie?
Party Monster. You can find that. I think it's probably streaming somewhere.
And what did he do again? He killed people?
So there was a club kid who whacked out of his mind on drugs. He injected Drano into his drug dealer's veins, then dismembered him in garbage cans and threw him in the East River.
That's right. Okay.
Hold on. I could tell you where this is. This is streaming. Oh, it's on Prime Video, I think.
Nice.
It's called Limelight, 2011. But Tim, it's 2 hours, and even if you've never been to one of these clubs, it's really fascinating. They have people who had camcorders back in the day. The Tunnel was a hip hop club. They have Nas, Jay-Z, Wu-Tang, like literally camcorder footage of them before there were anybody playing at these places. Vin Diesel was a doorman at one of these places.
Nice.
But it was, I mean, he was the guy with one eye. It was really, really fascinating. I think you'd really enjoy it because it was
Is it a doc or a movie?
Limelight, the movie Limelight is a documentary.
Okay.
And it's all about the guy. He was a club guy he was a Canadian who out of nowhere just built this empire. Like literally, I think I told the story. My prom, I went to the Limelight after my junior prom.
Wow.
And they let us in. We were all 16, and they let us in because we were all dressed up in tuxes. And some guy in a wedding dress told my girlfriend she would look great naked on his table. And we were like, "Yo, we got to get out of here." We ended up calling the limo guy and went to the Hard Rock Cafe instead.
She might have been the next victim.
She was looking at me and she was like, I'm like, "Yeah, we're out of here." It was just, we were too young. We didn't know we were getting into. But that place, I mean, I hope they someday do a documentary of just the Limelight and the shows they did, because they would have, Jimmy Ferrari would be the guy to talk to because he went to all of them. Like, this was a deconsecrated church that they turned into a club, right? So it's an actual church. There's stained glass and cathedrals and the whole nine. And they had, I mean, they would do hardcore shows, they would do metal shows. All the industrial came through there. KMFDM, Thrill Kill Cult, Alien Sex Fiend, all that stuff came through there. So KMFDM, I think I said, awesome, just awesome stuff. But yeah, Tim, that's one. Put that on one night, and you are going to be enthralled just watching what you would think is a dry documentary. It's really cool.
I'm gonna watch that fucking. I mean, I'm gonna watch that fucking Friday.
It's a good watch. It's a good watch. So what else, Tim? What other books would we be remiss if we didn't mention?
As soon as the girlfriend goes to bed, I'll watch it. Anyway, read the Lords of Chaos book. I mean, the movie is good. The book is better, I think.
Well, the movie is about as accurate as it could be.
Yeah.
And still tell a compelling story. The book is a bit drier, but it gives a lot more of the background behind some of that stuff.
Yeah, read that. I also want to go through some books that I have in my list that I want to see if you read that I need to get done this year. So let's do that. There's one called Smash, the story of Green Day, The Offspring, No Effects, Bad Religion. It's called The 90s Punk Explosion. I need to read that. Max Cavalera has a book called My Bloody Roots. Did you ever hear about that?
I've heard about it. I've never read it.
Rex Brown, Official Truth, 101 Proof. I got
a copy of that upstairs. Yep.
Did you read it?
No.
All right. I don't really care for this band, but the book's probably great. It's called Hardcore Life on My Own by Harley Flanagan.
Yes, that and Evolution of a Cro-Magnon Man by John Joseph. Yep, I have both those. Yep.
And you've read that?
I haven't read them. It's one of those where I got to read this and then I just get distracted.
All right. Randall Blythe's Dark Days I need to read.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know who that is, Lamb of God. For the Sake of Heaviness, Metal Blade Records.
That was a good book.
Brian
Slagle's story. Yeah, I've read that. That's a good story. Yeah.
I also, in my Amazon card, I have Brian Welch's Save Me From Myself. I need to check that out too.
Yeah, I'm curious about that one. Let me know if that one's good. I'm trying to think. So there's other stuff I might recommend.
You read Heroin Diaries, didn't you?
Who's that?
Motley Crue. Or was it
no, what was it called? It was called something else. But I read that book. It was insane. The Dirt.
Well, yeah, The Dirt. That's it.
Yeah, I read that.
I thought it was called The Heroin Diaries.
I think it's The Dirt, but
is it Nikki Sixx?
That might be Nikki Sixx's book.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. So some of the other stuff we had Brian Paoni on with his Dreams Are Unfinished Thoughts, which is the God Lives Underwater book. That was interesting. I would suggest a book. It's called it's like we talked about in the last episode. I'm a big fan of techno, right? So the book The Underground is Massive, which talks about the rise of techno and the underground electronic music. Along the same lines, there's a book called Generation Ecstasy. And I think it's out of print, so it's kind of hard to find. You got to buy it used for like $6 or $7 bucks. But this is the story of house music, right? How it went from UK to Detroit back to the UK. But at the same time, it tells the story of ecstasy, the drug, MDMA. And it talks about how both of those come up together, and it covers things like Aphex Twin and Square Pusher and all the really kind of weird Diesel Boy, all the weird sort of drum and bass electronic stuff, but also what was going on with the drug scene at the time. And I think we talked about this, Tim. So ecstasy, the drug, was huge.
Oh yeah.
And depending upon where you were in Europe, it was cut with different things. So in France, Balearics, Spain, right on the Mediterranean, Ibiza, they would cut their ecstasy with Valium or downers, barbiturates. So that's why you get a lot of your deep house, down tempo, chill, that Ibiza sound. That's where that comes from. So when you went to Germany, Netherlands, Denmark, they cut their ecstasy with amphetamines. So that's where your gabber, your happy hardcore, your Rotterdam stuff, that's where that comes from. So because of what they were cutting the X with, the artists were playing different types of music. That was the theory in the book. And I was like reading this and I'm going, well, that makes a lot of sense. You know, I mean, I love that. I mean, we could do a deep dive episode with just me yapping about Moonshine Records and how huge that shit was. But they did, you know, hardcore for the Headstrong, Nightmares from Rotterdam, all that stuff. It was that Gabber shit was kind of insane. You got to be on speed to listen to that stuff now, like Noise Kick and what's the other guy? He wears a mask, Anger Fist. Like, it's not bad, but you think listen to fucking Cannibal Corpse for more than an hour will melt your brain? This stuff, it's like
yeah, that shit'll give you a fucking that's the kind of shit that gives you a fucking mental breakdown.
I'm pretty sure that's the shit they play when the CIA tries to rewire your brain. Like, that's the stuff they play in the background.
Or Pig Destroyer.
Yo, what'd you think of that last album? Headcase.
Loved it.
Really?
Yeah. Or no. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant the one before that.
Oh, Bookburner.
I forgot.
I love Bookburner.
Yeah, that's good.
Headcase was okay. It was just okay.
Wait, is Headcase the one that had that like new metal-y track on it?
Yes.
Love that album. I was right. That's a great record.
Yeah,
it's like track 8 where it has that slamming fucking groove part.
Yeah, we're gonna have to disagree with this one because I loved Bookburner. I love
Bookburner's good, yeah.
But yeah.
Prowler in the Yard, amazing.
Oh yes, the original stuff, the old stuff, the Prowler in the Yard, and what's the other one? The other OG album. It's one of their first two. Oh, it's the one where there's the picture of the guy with the hacksaw on the cover.
Fuck, why am I forgetting this? Yeah, look it up real quick. You could be
people are screaming at their radio right now. Pig Destroyer discography.
The split with Converge is great too.
Terrifier. That's the one I'm thinking of. Oh, no, Explosions in Ward 6, Prowler in the Yard. That's the cover I'm thinking of. Terrifier.
How do we forget Terrifier?
I don't know. And then it was Phantom Limb.
Phantom Limb, that's a good one.
And then Bookburner, and then Headcage. I loved Bookburner. Like, that was my
that's it. Yeah,
that was my Pig Destroyer moment where I'm just like, yo, this is no joke.
They didn't have anything after Headcage, right?
No, they haven't done anything. But they've been playing some shows lately, so I'm assuming that they probably have something going on somewhere.
Are they? Yeah, it's funny. I love that band, but I don't know. Is that like another thing about veganism, the Pig Destroyer thing?
No, I think it was about cops.
Okay. Gotcha.
And the funny thing is, the guitarist who writes all the riffs, Scott Hall, he is an IT guy who does work for the government. He's got like a level 7 clearance or something like that. He's no joke. So it's just a side project for them. It's like agoraphobic nosebleed, where it's just a side project because they can't tour full time. They've all got lives.
Yeah, Agoraphobic, another crazy band.
Yeah, just fucking that guy. The one guy from that band had that label, Grindcore Karaoke. And that's when I first started using Bandcamp because all their stuff was on there and it was like $1 for an album. I'm like, I'll check it out. But back to books. So we have to shout out previous guest, Matt Karp. Matt did the book on nu metal. He did a book on Tool. He did a book on Korn. I think he did a book on Oasis. So this dude is prolific. Check out his shit. All of his books are quality. I've got them all upstairs. If you're into like images and stuff, pictures, the Life Love Shirts books are good.
I was just gonna mention that. Don't you have the album art book?
Oh yeah, and Justice for Art. Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go.
So he
We were supposed to get him on, weren't we?
yeah, Ramon. Well, I'm still working with him, trying to get him trying to get some time for him to come on. But yeah, he does amazing shit, and he does small runs. So you got to buy it when it comes out, and then it's basically that was your chance. There was the Hate Thousand, the story of Hate Thousand Hardcore, which is a European thing. What else?
Oh,
And the
H8. Yeah.
yeah, H8000. And then there was the two Pitch Shifter books, which are crowdfunded, which is basically J.S. Clayton's tour diary from the PSI tour, both Europe and the US. Uh, I will tell everybody, look, I know disposable income these days is hard to come by, but whenever you see one of those things on a Kickstarter where it's like $20, $30, they'll send you a book, it's usually worth buying, because if you read it and then you want to turn around and sell it on the open market, you can usually get your money's worth and then some, because they do very small runs, and when it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
Like Ramon's books, all of his art books, I've got first runs of all of them, and it's 3 album arts and then the live albums. And yeah, I've got the I have a book up there about the wetlands in New York. I have a book about the Warp Tour, which kind of sucked. Don't buy that thing. Civ's book that just came out. Anthony Civarelli from Civ and what was that? Youth of Today. He was the roadie.
Yeah, what's it called again?
A Roadie's Tale. It was great. It was great. Like you listen to these guys tell these stories where, again, they were touring with payphones and quarters and atlases, and they were having trouble booking a show, so they would spend like 3 days in California. Like, imagine that happening now, right? Imagine we get Adam from Orthodox on and we told him, yo, we're not sure where your next show is, so you're just going to have to hang out in San Diego for 3 days. Like, and they showed the tour route in it. It's wild. But yeah, that was a really, again, not a band I'm a fan of at all, but it was a really cool story.
Yeah, not a fan either, but I would read that.
Yeah, it was good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Tim.
Speaking of books coming out, when Jimmy puts his book out, definitely going to read that.
Oh, we're going to have him on. We'll have him on. Absolutely. I think that'll be a fun conversation. I've been reading, like, I've been following his project on Facebook, and it's kind of cool. Like, he's got a really cool story.
Yeah, of course he's starting Blast Furnace up again, so
we should do a crossover podcast.
Yep.
A swapcast.
I'll be editing that again, so
you know what?
Got confirmed for that. So
you can send him back, but tell him it's his episode, but it's like you and I talking shit for like 30 minutes. Like, he posts it and he's like, oh, in my interview with Daryl Palumbo from Glassjaw. And then it comes out and it's me and you talking in falsetto, just talking shit for 30 minutes.
Yeah, we should. He wouldn't even know.
No, he wouldn't. Nobody listens to their own shit. I don't listen to our own shit. But yeah, so I think this whole episode is a lot like the documentary episode. It's a way of saying, look, there are other ways you can enjoy musical content where you can actually learn something, get a bit of a history lesson, and do it in a fun way. And there is no shortage of stuff available out there. And if you're not sure, what book did you guys mention? Please ping us through Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Gmail. Leave us a voicemail, 267-297-4627. Call, leave a voicemail. We'll get back to you. Like, yo, we were talking about this book, because we have had some people reach out and say, hey, you mentioned this. Where do I find that? We will gladly hook you up, right? And if I have a copy of something, or I have two, because my wife doesn't know this, but I do end up with two a lot, because ADHD, you just start ordering shit, don't pay attention. I'll send you a copy. I don't give a shit. If I got a spare, I'll send it.
Yeah, Jay's nice like that, so.
I keep giving Tim, you'll notice he's wearing an Orthodox shirt. In the summer, you'll notice Tim will have all different t-shirts on of slam metal bands. He doesn't even know who they are, because I just keep giving him bags of clothes.
Pretty much.
All right. So this was a fun one. So if you like what you heard, reach out. Newbreed_podcast, Podcast, Twitter and Instagram, newbreedpodcast@gmail.com. If there's a book that you've read that you think Tim and I would both enjoy, regardless of genre, send it over, man. Send it over, man or lady, I should say. We're always looking for new stuff. So send that over. 267-297-4627. Leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on the show. Tune in every Wednesday for new episodes, usually around lunch, but sometimes we don't know.
Sometimes around 5.
Sometimes around 5. And then make sure you check us out on YouTube, because on Fridays we do reaction vids, and you might find some more new stuff you want to listen to. So thanks again for tuning in, listening, watching once again. And until next time, it's Jay and Tim with the New Breed Podcast saying cheers.
Later.